Robert Redford returns to star in our Friday night film on BBC1 at 11 o'clock as the journalist whose investigations into the Watergate break-in led to the downfall of all the President's men. In 50 minutes, our second feature film this evening stars William Conrad as Cannon.
Screen 2 returns tomorrow with Lovebirds. Kenny and his wife should be celebrating. But is there something Barbara ought to know?
Kenny, it's awful.
Huh?
Naseem in next ward, she lost her baby last night. And now her husband's in prison for pinching a wallet. What's wrong?
Oi! Qureshi! Come here, you thieving black bastard.
No, that's terrible.
Naseem says he's losing his job too.
We're going to get redundancies, right?
Look, I'll end up one dole, just like you.
Yeah, but you've got half a dozen other jobs on slide. Jesus, he even runs a mobile brothel.
And her sister's just told me he smashed his uncle's taxi. Fancy you both being in the same boat. Having crashes like and dicky on your jobs.
Fancy.
Screen 2 returns with Lovebirds. Tomorrow, 10 o'clock.
Be all right. Be all right.
On BBC Two shortly, John Borman's thriller Point Blank with Lee Marvin and Angie Dickinson, the first of two films set in Los Angeles. In 15 minutes here on BBC One, Jasper Carrot, that's after the news and sport.
Ulster police clash with mourners at an IRA funeral. Thousands march to demand more cash for the NHS. Prince Charles says 40 years of urban planning have been pretty disastrous. And Wales drive through for the Triple Crown. Good evening. There have been bitter clashes between mourners and the security forces at the funeral in Northern Ireland of Brendan Burns, one of the two IRA men blown up by their own bomb 5 days ago. There were scuffles and stones were thrown at the police as 5 masked men carried Burns' coffin out of the church at Crossmaglen. Many mourners then went on to the funeral of the other IRA man, Brendan Moley, who died with Burns in the explosion last Monday.
The army and police had taken up strategic positions before dawn, but the mourners outmaneuvered the security planning, disregarding what the police claimed as a family agreement for a dignified and peaceful funeral. Policemen in riot gear had to chase the cortege, and there were clashes as the police drew their batons. Several people were slightly injured in the scuffles. The huge security force presence had lost control, but a shuttle service of army helicopters ferried Marine commandos and police to catch up with the procession at Crossmaglen, 3 miles away. And it was there that the authorities did regain control, as a huge crowd surrounded the coffin of Brendan Burns and escorted it behind the police and army monitoring presence to St Patrick's Church. But the IRA had another illegal surprise. A colour party in balaclavas and paramilitary uniforms carried the coffin of the IRA's most notorious bomber, suspected of murdering 25 soldiers and policemen. When the IUC moved in, there were more clashes and minor injuries. The police accused Sinn Féin of converting the funeral into a paramilitary display. 2 Chinooks, rarely seen in Northern Ireland, brought in army reinforcements. Soldiers with riot shields took up positions around the graveyard. But as the police moved forward, there were no more incidents, and the burial of Brendan Burns was completed.
Thousands of people joined rallies throughout the country calling for more government spending on the National Health Service. The biggest march was in London. Police say it attracted 50,000 people. The organisers estimated that twice as many turned up.
Nurses, health workers and trade unionists converged on the capital from all over the country. It was a massive demonstration against government policies for the health service, directed particularly at Chancellor Nigel Lawson in the run-up to the budget.
The message to the government is to get cracking, pay some money out, give their support to the health service workers and to the patients. And that's got to be done on budget day.
multiple sclerosis sufferer Andrew Caldwell from Huddersfield agreed.
I don't want private health cover. I want good nurses, and that's what we've got.
Health Service union leaders, pensioners and MPs marched together. It was a cheerful protest despite the chilly winds, snaking through the heart of London from the Embankment to a rally in Hyde Park. The turnout may have impressed TUC leaders, but it's unlikely to change the Chancellor's mind. The budget is in just 10 days' time.
Mrs. Thatcher has said the community charge will revolutionise local authorities and transform the inner cities. She was speaking at a local government conference in London.
The Prime Minister doesn't usually address the Conservative local government conference, but the lack of popularity of the community charge or poll tax has caused serious concern in Conservative ranks. And so Mrs. Thatcher seized the opportunity to make her strongest ever defence of what she sees as a revolution in local government finance. Speaking without notes, she swept aside criticism that the better off would benefit unfairly from the poll tax.
We are going to a much better, much fairer system, fairer for the citizen, rebated if you can't afford it, and giving a very good means of accountability. And believe you me, this is going to transform inner cities, because no longer are they going to be able to spend, put it on the owner-occupier, the shops and industry, and in fact stop new jobs coming to the inner cities. It's going to be an enormous improvement.
The Conservative representatives at this conference were pleased that Mrs. Thatcher had responded to complaints that the government case wasn't being put across strongly enough. But Mrs. Thatcher's uncompromising defence of the community charge will disappoint Tory critics. They're still hoping for a last-minute change of heart before the legislation is finally passed by Parliament later this year.
The British Oxfam worker Peter Coleridge is spending his third night in captivity in Lebanon. It's thought that he and the Syrian Omar Tarbulsi, who was seized with him, are being held at a Palestinian camp near Sidon. One report says they were detained after Mr. Coleridge was seen taking photographs of the camp, a frequent target of Israeli air raids. A Sunni Muslim leader in Sidon has warned foreigners to leave Lebanon because he says they can't be protected from the kidnappers. And there have been more Palestinian demonstrations and clashes with Israeli troops on the occupied West Bank. 2 Palestinians are reported to have been shot dead by the Israelis, and several were injured.
The Israeli army used live ammunition to cover troops moving in to arrest rioters in the Palestinian refugee camp at Tulkarem. Rocks were met with a more deadly response. After their sweep through the camp, this was their only catch. In this brutal game of cat and mouse, the mice manage to escape most of the time. When they don't, they know what they can expect. The troops are forbidden to beat a prisoner after the arrest has been made, but they don't seem to be taking those orders too literally. The army managed a bigger haul of prisoners at Jelazoun. 50 Palestinians were bound and blindfolded. They were held in the playground of a school run by the United Nations. A UN spokesman condemned the use of the school as a prison camp. The Israelis said the men had been arrested to protect other Palestinians who were accused of collaborating with the Israeli authorities. The men were taken away for questioning.
An important Buddhist festival in Tibet has ended with violent anti-Chinese demonstrations. The protest took place in the capital city Lhasa. A police station was attacked and cars set on fire. But the Chinese say the disturbances were soon brought under control. Now, a look at today's sport with Michael Peshat.
Wales have won Rugby Union's Triple Crown for the first time in 9 years. They'd already beaten England and Scotland, and this afternoon, although not at their best, they were good enough to beat Ireland by 12 points to 9 in Dublin.
Wales started the way they'd ended the match against Scotland 2 weeks ago, with a Jonathan Davies drop goal just 3 minutes into the game.